From wounded to warrior, the empath's unstoppable rise beyond the shadow. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Khalil Gibran's words remind us that pain is not the end of our story, but often the very beginning of our transformation. In today's journey on spiritual wisdom, we explore from wounded to warrior, the empath's unstoppable rise beyond the shadow, inspired by Carl Jung's insights. What if your deepest wounds were not weaknesses, but hidden doors to strength, wisdom, and authentic power? As you listen, I encourage you to reflect on your own life. How have your struggles shaped you? And what lessons have you discovered in the process? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your story may be the spark that helps someone else rise beyond their shadow. 1. The core transformation. Jung's discovery reveals that highly sensitive individuals, often called empaths, face a defining choice. They can remain trapped in victimhood, endlessly carrying the weight of pain, rejection, and emotional burdens that do not belong to them. Or they can rise as warriors through the path of shadow integration and individuation. To stay in victimhood is to live in cycles of suffering, replaying the same wounds until life itself feels like a cage. But to choose individuation is to walk into the fire of transformation, where the shadow is not denied or feared, but faced with courage, and from that confrontation emerges wisdom, strength, and a new wholeness. This is not an ordinary change, but an alchemical transformation, one that turns emotional wounds into deep insight and fragile sensitivity into authentic strength. It is a process as radical as turning base metal into gold, for it demands that the empath take everything that once felt like weakness and discover within it the seed of their power. When the empath embraces this path, their pain becomes their greatest teacher, and their scars cease to be symbols of defeat, becoming instead sacred marks of survival and inner mastery. Through this transformation, they embody what Jung called the wounded healer, one who does not merely recover from suffering, but uses it as a source of compassion, wisdom, and guidance for others. Every betrayal, rejection, or disappointment becomes part of the alchemy, each experience refining the soul and pushing it toward deeper consciousness. This is where spirituality and spiritual awakening reveal their true meaning, not in escaping pain, but in integrating it, not in chasing light alone, but in recognizing that true light only emerges when the darkness has been faced and transformed. The empath's journey is a battlefield of the soul, a place where despair and courage meet, where sensitivity and strength converge. Those who remain trapped in the role of victim often collapse under the weight of their own unhealed wounds. But those who choose to rise discover an inner warrior who is unbreakable. Their sensitivity, once a heavy burden, becomes a gift of heightened intuition and profound empathy. Their suffering, once a prison, becomes the foundation of resilience. In this way, they step beyond being fragile souls who absorb the world's pain and become transformative forces who can radiate clarity and strength into the world. This is the unstoppable rise of the empath, the shift from wounded to warrior, the alchemical process Jung described that is both psychological and spiritual. It is the testimony that nothing is wasted, that even the deepest scars can be woven into a greater design of wisdom. That sensitivity, when integrated with the shadow, ceases to be weakness and becomes the highest form of authentic power. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. To realize that within every empath lies the possibility not merely to endure life, but to rise beyond it, to stand sovereign, whole, and unshaken, carrying the light born out of shadow. Are you ready to embrace your core transformation and rise beyond the shadow? If so, comment below, "I am unstoppable," to affirm your power and step fully into your warrior spirit. 2. The wounded identity trap. Many empaths fall unconsciously into what can be called the wounded identity trap, where the pain of their past begins to feel like the very definition of who they are. And though this suffering is real, it was never meant to become their name. When you identify with your wounds, you may carry them like badges, replaying old hurts not because you wish to suffer, but because familiarity feels safe, even when it limits your growth. This is the essence of wound attachment syndrome, where the story of pain loops endlessly, keeping you bound to what once harmed you. Spirituality and true spiritual development call you to step beyond this attachment, to honor the wound as a chapter, but not the entire book of your life. From here, another pattern emerges known as false light splitting, a tendency to cling only to the appearance of purity and love while rejecting anger, grief, or any aspect of shadow. In this state, you may force yourself to always be forgiving, kind, or endlessly positive, yet this disowning of your shadow drains your strength. Carl Jung warned that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your wholeness comes not from pretending away pain, but from integrating it. So your light carries the depth of truth rather than the fragility of denial. Equally binding is the pattern of suffering as currency, where pain becomes a way to earn attention, approval, or moral worth. You might find yourself overgiving, sacrificing, or proving your goodness through hardship, yet the cost is the erosion of self-respect. Your worth is not dependent on suffering, it is inherent. Healing begins when you stop trading agony for belonging and start building relationships where love and reciprocity walk hand in hand. Alongside this comes the addiction to powerlessness, the hidden strategy of staying helpless to avoid responsibility or risk. If you believe you cannot, then you never have to try. And while this may shield you from failure, it also robs you of freedom. True responsibility is not blame, it is the ability to respond. When you embrace that ability, you reclaim authorship over your life. Even small choices, such as saying no with grace or daring to act differently, build the foundation of empowerment that transforms sensitivity into wisdom. Lastly, many empaths wrestle with the fear of becoming oppressors, holding the belief that power itself is corrupt because they have seen how power was abused in the past. This fear leads them to reject their own authority, confusing weakness with virtue. Yet power and abuse are not the same. Abuse is power twisted without love, while healthy power is love expressed through boundaries, vision, and responsibility. When you step into rightful power, you do not harm, you protect, you guide, you create safety for yourself and others. By releasing these 5 traps, you begin to embody what Jung called the wounded healer, one who transforms wounds into wisdom and turns sensitivity into strength. So let this be your lesson. You are not defined by wounds, but by how you rise beyond them. Wholeness is not about rejecting darkness, but embracing it as a source of strength. Suffering does not prove your worth. Your worth is already complete. Powerlessness is not safety. True safety is in authorship. Power is not to be feared, but sanctified through love and boundaries. Each conscious step you take, whether setting a boundary, speaking your truth, or choosing responsibility, becomes a sacred act of spiritual development. This is the path of spirituality lived in action. Moving from wounded to warrior, carrying your sensitivity not as a chain, but as a compass that guides you toward authentic freedom and unshakable strength. 3. The 4 stages of empathic evolution. The first stage is the unconscious absorber, where sensitivity feels more like a curse than a blessing. In this stage, you unknowingly take on the emotions and energies of others, often mistaking them as your own. You might feel overwhelmed in crowded places, drained after conversations, or unsettled without knowing why. Instead of recognizing this as a rare gift, you see it as weakness, and without awareness, you live as a sponge for the world's shadows. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And here, fate feels heavy because intelligence and awareness have not yet been applied to your sensitivity. The second stage is the wounded helper, when you begin to turn your sensitivity outward, using it to help others, but forgetting yourself in the process. You comfort, heal, and guide, yet all the while you remain stuck in your own unhealed wounds. Jung's concept of the wounded healer becomes evident here. You feel the pain of others so deeply that you believe healing them will ease your own suffering. But without turning compassion inward, this stage leaves you exhausted, bound to cycles of self-neglect, blurred boundaries, and a constant pull to give until nothing remains for yourself. You may think you are strong because you serve others, but the truth is, you are still trapped, unable to rise beyond the patterns that hold you back. The third stage is the shadow integrator, and this is where the real transformation begins. Here, you stop running from the parts of yourself that were labeled negative, anger, ambition, pride, power, and instead begin to reclaim them as essential aspects of your wholeness. You realize these traits are not enemies, but energies, and when harnessed with wisdom, they become the fuel of your strength. Jung's process of individuation reveals itself in this stage. You are not meant to chase light alone, but to embrace the shadow and make it conscious. This is where empathy without strength is replaced by empathy united with power. You no longer collapse under the weight of others' chaos. You stand firm, rooted in the balance of both compassion and authority. The fourth stage is the integrated warrior, the culmination of the empath's rise. At this point, you embody empathy and strength as one. You set boundaries without guilt, serve others without losing yourself, and carry your sensitivity as a gift rather than a burden. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are," and here, that privilege becomes reality. You serve authentically, no longer from compulsion, but from conscious choice. You protect your energy, honor your needs, and help others in ways that uplift both them and yourself. This stage is not about rejecting the wounds of the past, but about transforming them into wisdom, courage, and guidance. The empath, who once felt cursed, has now become a warrior of light, embodying the rare union of heart and power that allows them to change not only their own life, but the lives of those they touch. Comment below, "I embrace my empathic evolution," if you are ready to rise through all 4 stages and step fully into your unstoppable power. 4. Dangers on the path. The identity annihilation crisis often strikes first. The raw terror that if you truly heal, you will lose yourself completely, because so much of your life has been built around being the one who absorbs pain, fixes others, and sacrifices for harmony. And when those old roles begin to dissolve, it feels like a collapse into emptiness. Yet what is being stripped away is not your essence, but only the mask you have worn. And the path forward is to anchor yourself in simple daily practices: steady breath, mindful journaling, prayer, or quiet reflection that remind you that healing is not erasure, but refinement, like polishing glass until your true reflection shines through with clarity. This inner shift then collides with the second danger, the relationship apocalypse. Because once you set healthy boundaries, those who benefited from your self-sacrifice may resist fiercely, questioning your love, guilt tripping you, or withdrawing affection to pull you back into the old script. But this is where courage matters most, because holding your new boundaries with compassion rather than defensiveness proves that self-respect is not cruelty, it is clarity. And though some connections may crumble, others will deepen and become more authentic when nourished by honesty rather than dependence. From here emerges the third challenge, the shadow terror, the deep fear of meeting your own suppressed anger, ambition, or selfishness, qualities you once judged as dangerous or unspiritual. Yet Carl Jung reminded us that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And the shadow is not a monster to slay, but an energy to reclaim, a source of vitality that, when integrated, transforms anger into discernment, desire into purpose, and selfishness into healthy self-regard. This is best done through embodied practices like moving the body, breathing deeply through tension, writing unfiltered truths in private, and slowly training the nervous system to hold strength without aggression. And yet, while facing the shadow, another subtle trap appears: spiritual bypassing, the tendency to cover wounds with polished words about love and light without doing the painful but necessary work of feeling, forgiving, and changing. Because spirituality that denies suffering is not awakening, but avoidance. And true spiritual awakening asks you to stay with discomfort until it teaches you to cry when grief rises, to apologize when you falter, and to let meditation or prayer expand your capacity to sit with reality instead of escaping it. Finally, there is the quiet but seductive danger of inflation, the sense of superiority that can arise once healing begins to bear fruit, the belief that your insights place you above ordinary people and their struggles. But authentic growth bows toward humility, not hierarchy, because wisdom is measured not by mystical language, but by how you live. Patience in conflict, honesty in speech, generosity in small moments, and steadiness when storms come. The antidote to inflation is to practice beginner's mind, to serve where no one is watching, to stay surrounded by voices that lovingly challenge you, and to remind yourself daily that the goal of transformation is not to stand taller than others, but to walk more lightly, more truthfully, and more whole. These 5 dangers: identity dissolution, relationship rupture, shadow confrontation, bypassing temptation, and the inflation of pride, are not punishments, but thresholds. Each one a passage that tests whether your healing is genuine, and when you move through them, with awareness, each danger becomes a doorway, each crisis a teacher, and what once threatened to break you becomes the very ground upon which your spiritual awakening takes root and rises. 5. Jung's methods for transformation. Active shadow work is the first step on Jung's path of transformation, and it means reclaiming the parts of yourself you have buried: your anger, your selfishness, your power, not as flaws to fear, but as forces to guide with wisdom. When anger rises, recognize it as a signal that your values or boundaries are being violated. Then take a slow breath and ask what truth needs to be spoken. For anger, when honored, can become courage. Selfishness, too, is often a misnamed instinct for self-care. And by allowing yourself rest, solitude, and honest no's, you learn that choosing your needs does not make you unkind, but makes you capable of giving authentically. Even power, the word so many empaths resist, is not domination, but direction. The ability to channel your will toward integrity. So let it live in your clear voice, your steady choices, and your willingness to stand tall without apology, because power with integrity becomes protection and service. From here, you move into the art of conscious boundaries, which Jung would have seen not as walls, but as filters that let in the nourishing and keep out the harmful. This requires awareness on 3 levels. The inner filter of your thoughts and emotions, where you decide which stories to repeat and which to release. The relational filter, where you respond to people based on how they act rather than how they demand. And the environmental filter, where you shape the spaces, media, and routines that support your soul. You do not need to explain endlessly for a simple sentence like, "I will get back to you later," or "that does not work for me." Spoken with calm honesty is more powerful than hours of justifying. And each time you do this, your body feels the relief of truth aligned with action, showing you that boundaries are not barriers, but bridges to healthier connections. Authentic power training then becomes your daily practice. For strength without compassion hardens into cruelty, while compassion without strength collapses into self-erasure. But when you fuse the two, you embody what Jung called wholeness, the union of opposites. Authentic power grows in small repetitions, holding steady eye contact instead of lowering your gaze, stating your needs in one clear line instead of diluting them with apologies, choosing an action aligned with your values rather than waiting for someone else's permission. This is the power that carries both spine and heart, the power that lets you protect your own light while still extending warmth to others. And it is in these ordinary acts that extraordinary transformation takes root, turning sensitivity into spiritual wisdom. Finally, you reconstruct your identity, because the story you tell yourself shapes the reality you live. To move from victim to healer, from survivor to warrior, you must rewrite your inner narrative with deliberate intention. You can begin by acknowledging your past without glorifying it, naming the wounds without wearing them as chains, and then creating a mission statement for who you are becoming: someone who brings clarity, mercy, strength, or truth to the world through conscious action. Support this new identity with rituals that anchor you. In the morning, ask yourself what you need, what you choose, and what you offer. In the evening, celebrate the boundaries you kept and the courage you practiced. Each week, shift one limiting belief into a learning statement. trading "I cannot" for "I am discovering how." In doing so, you fulfill Jung's vision of individuation, where the shadow is not destroyed, but integrated, given a role that transforms sabotage into service, turning reactivity into presence, people-pleasing into wise compassion, and pain into a source of spiritual development. Emotions are data to be guided, not disasters to be feared. Boundaries spoken with truth heal both you and your relationships. Authentic power grows through daily practice until it becomes your natural way of being. An identity is not fixed, but rewritten every time you choose alignment over fear. In this way, the empath who was once wounded becomes the warrior who carries light and shadow together, embodying spirituality not as an escape, but as a living strength, and walking forward with a steady sense of purpose, resilience, and peace. 6. Success versus failure. Viktor Frankl showed the world that even in the darkest places, the human spirit can find meaning. He survived the unspeakable by holding on to a purpose greater than his suffering, teaching that those who have a reason to live can bear almost anyhow. His story is not just a historical example. It is a reminder for you that when you are overwhelmed by pain, confusion, or loss, your first step is to ask, what meaning can I create from this? By reframing suffering into purpose, you shift from wounded to warrior. Nelson Mandela embodied the next stage of transformation. He emerged from decades of imprisonment without bitterness, declaring that if he did not leave his hatred behind, he would still be a prisoner. That is the true face of empathic leadership, the ability to feel deeply and yet rise above resentment. Sensitivity, when disciplined by moral courage, becomes not a weakness, but a force for freedom, reconciliation, and vision. Yet alongside these success stories lies the cautionary pattern that Carl Jung warned against. The shadow unintegrated becomes a trap. Many fall into the role of the professional victim or trauma entrepreneur, repeating their pain as an identity and even profiting from it, but never truly healing. They rehearse their wounds so often that both their nervous system and their audience begin to normalize their suffering, locking them into cycles of pity and performance. Ask yourself honestly, am I using my story to anchor the past or to open the future? This question determines whether your path leads to stagnation or growth. Carl Jung's intelligence and spiritual wisdom invite you to make the crucial pivot shadow integration. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain," urging us to face the parts of ourselves we fear: rage, grief, envy, the hunger to be seen. When you acknowledge these emotions without collapsing into them, you reclaim power. You transform reactivity into responsibility and sensitivity into strength. This is emotional intelligence in its highest form, the very foundation of becoming whole. The traits of those who succeed in this transformation are not accidental. They are deliberate. Responsibility means you accept authorship of your next chapter, even if you did not choose the opening lines of your story. Courage means you let go of the hidden benefits of being a victim, the sympathy, the attention, the comfort of staying small, and instead step into the unknown dignity of growth. Willingness to integrate your shadow means you refuse to suppress what hurts, but instead learn from it, transform it, and channel it into creativity, purpose, and service. Practically, this means speaking truth to yourself. I will not monetize my wound. I will metabolize it. Replace "why me" with what now? And let this question direct your daily actions. Build small but powerful rituals. Pause and breathe when you are triggered. Write in your journal to uncover the lesson hidden in discomfort. Surround yourself with people who do not enable your old story, but call you forward into a greater one. When your past identity whispers for attention, remember Frankl's why and Mandela's gate, two beacons showing that healing is possible and strength is born from suffering. This is how the empath rises beyond the shadow, not by miracle, but by method. Meaning over rumination, leadership over resentment, responsibility over rehearsal, courage over comfort, and integration over illusion. If you walk this path, you will discover, as Jung taught, that your shadow is not your enemy, but your fuel. Your sensitivity is not fragility, but finely tuned power. And your wounds are not prisons, but forges where warriors are made. 7. The 5 phases of transformation. The first phase is pain recognition, where the empath awakens to the depth of suffering they have carried, no longer denying or numbing it, but finally allowing the truth to surface. Pain becomes the first teacher, pointing toward hidden wounds that are in need of healing and signaling the beginning of spiritual awakening. Jung emphasized that the wound is the place where light enters, and by recognizing pain, the empath chooses awareness over unconscious repetition, opening the door to transformation. The journey then moves into shadow confrontation, the phase where the empath must face the darker aspects of the self that have been buried, denied, or rejected. Jung's concept of shadow work explains that everything unacknowledged continues to control life in hidden ways. For the empath, confronting the shadow means meeting repressed emotions, unspoken rage, and forgotten traumas with honesty. This confrontation is not about judgment, but about integration, reclaiming pieces of the self that once seemed threatening, yet hold immense power when brought into the light of consciousness. Next comes boundary building, the sacred act of protecting one's energy and emotional landscape. For the empath, boundaries are not barriers of cold attachment, but gates of discernment. They teach the crucial difference between compassion and self-abandonment. Without them, the empath absorbs the storms of others, mistaking them for their own. With them, clarity and strength emerge. Learning to say no becomes a declaration of self-respect, while saying yes becomes a conscious act of integrity. Boundaries form the foundation that allows the empath to remain open-hearted without being consumed, cultivating the balance essential for spiritual growth. From this foundation arises power reclamation and purpose discovery. Here, the empath steps out of the victim narrative and reclaims the authority of their inner world. Every fragment of energy once lost to fear, dependency, or self-doubt is gathered back, fueling a new sense of wholeness. Sensitivity, once mistaken for weakness, reveals itself as a compass guiding them toward a deeper calling. The wounds that once brought despair now unfold into purpose, reminding the empath that their unique struggles were preparing them to embody wisdom and to shine their gifts into the world. This is the moment of spiritual awakening, where strength is no longer borrowed, but born from within. The final phase is warrior integration and service, where the empath becomes a living embodiment of resilience and authenticity. Integration means no longer rejecting or fragmenting parts of the self, but embracing shadow and light, wound and wisdom, weakness and strength as a unified whole. From this completeness, service flows naturally, not through self-sacrifice, but through presence. The empath becomes a warrior, not of armor, but of light, one whose existence radiates healing, courage, and truth. In this phase, life itself becomes an offering, a testimony that transformation is possible, that spirituality is not distant but alive, and that awakening is the destiny of every soul willing to walk through the shadow into the fullness of who they are meant to become. 8. Cultural and collective role. When empaths integrate both their wounds and their wisdom, they transform into conscious warriors, leaders, healers, and models of authentic living who embody the true essence of spiritual development. Instead of treating sensitivity as weakness, they reveal it as a profound source of power, proving that empathy and strength are not opposites, but partners in creating a life of depth and meaning. By embracing this truth, they no longer move through life in defense, but in presence, guiding others by example and showing that personal healing can ripple outward into collective transformation. As Jung observed, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." And when empaths awaken, they do not awaken for themselves alone, but for the whole of humanity, carrying light into places where others remain bound by shadow. Their very existence becomes proof that wounds, when faced with courage, can become the fertile ground from which wisdom, compassion, and resilience grow. Throughout history, those who combined heart and courage, leaders who uplifted, healers who transformed suffering into remedies, visionaries who imagined higher ways of being, have shaped the collective path. Integrated empaths are the modern embodiment of this lineage. Their spirituality is not detached from life, but rooted in it, alive in compassion, clarity, and authentic power. What once felt like a burden, the overwhelming sensitivity, the struggle with boundaries, the weight of emotional depth, becomes the foundation for their role as guides and healers. Their rise is never just personal. It is symbolic of human evolution itself. When even one empath breaks the cycle of victimhood and rises as a warrior, that act sends a ripple through the collective, awakening others to the possibility of healing and reminding them that the path from wounded to whole is also the path toward collective awakening. This journey demands courage, patience, and unwavering spiritual development. It calls the empath to embrace their own shadow, while also holding compassionate space for the shadows of others, to balance tenderness with boundaries, to meet life's challenges with resilience while keeping their sensitivity intact. Spirituality in this sense becomes embodied practice. It is revealed not in abstract thought, but in daily choices. How you listen, how you forgive, how you love without losing yourself, how you bring healing into your work, your relationships, your community. In each of these moments, the empath becomes the bridge between fragility and strength, between personal transformation and collective evolution. The deeper truth is that none of the suffering was wasted. Every wound carved a greater depth. Every heartbreak stretched the capacity for love. Every misunderstanding expanded the ability to see with compassion. This is the path of the wounded healer that Jung described as the one who heals not in spite of their pain, but because of it. Integrated empaths embody this archetype, demonstrating that sensitivity fused with strength becomes not fragility, but power, not curse, but calling. Sensitivity alone can lead to suffering. Strength without sensitivity can turn into cruelty. But when the two come together, they form the warrior who can reshape destiny, both their own and the collective's. each choice to remain compassionate without losing power, each moment of standing firm while still honoring sensitivity, each act of integrating shadow into light does more than free the individual. It contributes to humanity's spiritual development. This is the unstoppable rise of the empath, not as a victim of wounds, but as a warrior of wisdom, proving that personal healing is not only personal, but always part of the greater unfolding of collective evolution. If you find this content touching your heart, please consider becoming a member to receive more in-depth lessons and direct support from me. And so, when an empath finally snaps and their light turns to shadow, it is not a collapse. It is a rebirth into strength, clarity, and truth. This is Carl Jung's most chilling insight, but also his most empowering gift. The moment of transformation where pain becomes wisdom and vulnerability becomes power. If this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Like this video, share it with someone who needs this wisdom today, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss the profound insights we have yet to uncover. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to receive our upcoming videos. This rare glow only appears in real empaths. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." In the same way, real empaths carry a rare glow that transforms every space they enter, often without even realizing it. This isn't just about feeling emotions. It's about embodying a frequency that can heal, uplift, and awaken others. In today's video on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore Jung's chilling truth about this rare aura and how you can apply these principles in your daily life for personal growth and happiness. Have you ever felt people sense something unique in you the moment you walk into a room? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. 1. The rare empathic aura. True empaths carry within themselves an aura that is impossible to ignore, a rare glow that Carl Jung described as the wounded healer frequency. This energy is not simply kindness or natural goodness, but the result of deep psychological alchemy, the inner transformation of pain into power, of wounds into wisdom. It is an energy that others can feel instantly the moment an empath walks into a room, a presence that heals without words, comforts without effort, and unsettles without intention. This aura is born not from ease, but from hardship, from heartbreak, loss, and loneliness that have been faced and transmuted instead of denied, where others become hardened by life's cruelty. The true empath allows suffering to break them open, and through that breaking emerges a strength that radiates far beyond themselves. This wounded healer frequency is both magnetic and dangerous, both a gift and a burden. It draws people close, often without them knowing why, as if the empath's presence speaks directly to their hidden wounds. Strangers open up with confessions, friends seek counsel, and even those passing through feel inexplicably seen. Yet this same light also attracts shadows of individuals who drain energy, who are unwilling to heal, but eager to feed off another's strength. Here lies the paradox of the empath's path: to embody a healing presence while learning discernment, to shine without being consumed, to offer compassion while protecting one's soul. This is where spirituality deepens, because the empath is called to balance openness with boundaries, generosity with self-care, and light with shadow. What Jung recognized is that this aura is forged through an inner process he called psychological alchemy, where suffering is not wasted, but transmuted into higher understanding. In modern life, this truth is more relevant than ever. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every moment of despair can be used as raw material for transformation. Instead of letting pain close the heart, the empath learns to keep it open, to let compassion grow from wounds. This is why empaths carry a presence that cannot be faked or taught. It is earned through experience and through choosing healing again and again. It is why others may feel comforted in their presence even if no words are spoken, because their very energy tells a story of survival, resilience, and love. To walk this path requires courage, because the empath's glow exposes both beauty and shadow. Some will be drawn to it like moths to flame. Others will resist it because it unsettles them, reminding them of truths they would rather avoid. Yet the empath's role is not to be understood by all, but to embody the possibility of turning suffering into strength, to live as proof that wounds can be medicine. Spiritual awakening, in this sense, is not about escaping pain, but about facing it fully and allowing it to carve the soul into something greater. It is about realizing that healing others does not come from perfection, but from having walked through the fire and emerging with a heart that still beats in love. The empath's aura, this rare glow, is not only a gift to the world, but also a reminder of responsibility. It teaches that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the transformation of it, that spirituality is not abstract, but alive in every choice to stay open, to forgive, to set boundaries, and to continue radiating light even when darkness presses in. To carry such energy is to live as both teacher and student, healer and wounded one, light bearer and human soul still learning. This is the paradox that makes the empath so rare and so needed. They walk through the same storms as others, but instead of drowning, they rise, and in rising, they light the way. If you feel connected to this rare empathic aura, affirm it now. Comment below, "I carry the rare glow," and let the world know your light cannot be hidden. 2. Origins in survival and trauma. Empaths are not simply people who feel more deeply than others. Their glow comes from something far more profound. Many of them were shaped by childhoods where safety was fragile, where being hyper-aware of the moods and intentions of others was not a choice, but a necessity for survival. Their nervous systems rewired themselves to adapt, transforming into what could be called emotional antennas, with mirror neurons firing at an unusually high level, and the limbic system becoming highly sensitive. This sensitivity, at first a defense mechanism, gradually evolved into a sacred energy field that radiates an unmistakable presence. Carl Jung described this phenomenon through the archetype of the wounded healer, someone who, through suffering, discovers not only their own resilience, but also a mysterious energy that can heal and awaken others. What once began as the instinct to endure became the foundation of a rare aura that silently influences and comforts those around it. This rare glow is both a gift and a challenge, a paradox woven into the empath's existence. On one side, it uplifts, calms, and heals those who encounter it, creating a sense of safety and connection without the need for words. On the other side, it leaves the empath vulnerable, drawing in both light and shadow, those who are nourished by their presence and those who seek to drain it. The life of an empath often feels like walking a delicate balance between giving and protecting, between allowing their energy to shine and safeguarding it from being consumed. This duality is not a flaw, but the very essence of their spiritual development, the constant transformation of pain into power, of wounds into wisdom, of survival into service. It is this inner alchemy that makes empaths living symbols of spirituality, embodying the truth that what once harmed them now becomes the light they offer to others. Everyday life continually reminds empaths of their unique wiring. Stepping into a room, they may feel the heaviness of unspoken tension or the lift of unseen joy before a single word is exchanged. Conversations linger long after they have ended, not because of the words spoken, but because the emotions of others are absorbed into their own being. This heightened awareness is not imagination, but a reflection of a nervous system attuned to the invisible signals of life. While others move through the world unaffected, empaths carry the weight and the beauty of emotions that do not belong solely to them. This constant exchange can be overwhelming, but it is also the source of profound insight. It allows them to see beneath the surface, to sense the truths others try to hide, and to respond with compassion that feels like healing in itself. Spirituality in this sense is not an abstract idea, but a daily lived experience, a practice of transforming sensitivity into guidance and connection. The true lesson is that the empath's glow, though born in hardship, is a sacred strength rather than a weakness. It is a living testimony that out of survival can come a gift powerful enough to change lives. Yet, like every great power, it requires balance and wisdom. Boundaries are not barriers, but shields that allow the empath to shine without being consumed. Grounding practices, whether prayer, meditation, time in nature, or creative expression, nurture their energy and keep it aligned with higher truth. And most importantly, they must remember that their gift is not meant to break them, but to awaken them and those they encounter. Carl Jung's reminder that the shoe that fits one person pinches another echoes strongly here, for the empath's path is unlike any other. Their glow cannot be fully explained, nor easily understood, but it can be lived with dignity, strength, and purpose. What began as survival became their most profound contribution to the world. A light of spirituality, a force of spiritual development, and a reminder that even in pain, something sacred can be born. Do you recognize this truth within your own story? If you do, affirm it boldly in the comments. I rose from survival. I carry the glow. 3. How the aura works. The aura of an empath works in a way that few truly understand, and Carl Jung offered insights that revealed just how extraordinary it is. The first stage is the energetic scan, where without effort, you begin detecting the emotions others are hiding. Grief, rage, fear, these unspoken feelings vibrate in the air, and your nervous system reads them like a silent language. This is not imagination, but a heightened sensitivity, a form of intelligence that allows you to sense what others are too afraid or too conditioned to express. It is here that the empath's journey begins, standing at the threshold between what is seen and what is felt. From scanning, the empath naturally moves into unconscious absorption. Here, Jung's idea of participation mystique comes alive. You are not just observing emotions, you are carrying them. Without realizing it, you hold fragments of another's pain within yourself. If someone's heart trembles with anxiety, you feel the tightness in your chest. If someone's anger simmers, you sense the fire beneath your skin. This stage is both a blessing and a burden, because the same quality that allows deep understanding can also drain you. Many empaths confuse this as weakness, but in truth, it is evidence of profound spiritual wisdom, the capacity to connect at a level most will never reach. Then comes the alchemical process, the sacred transformation. Unlike those who are crushed by the weight of raw emotion, the true empath has the rare ability to transmute it. Carl Jung called this the transcendent function, the psyche's capacity to hold shadow and light until something greater emerges. This is soul alchemy, turning grief into compassion, turning rage into clarity, turning fear into courage. Just as fire refines gold, your inner process refines suffering into healing energy. It is here that your power becomes undeniable, because what once threatened to drown you now becomes the current that carries you higher. The effect of this transformation radiates outward. Others feel lighter, calmer, and strangely healed simply by standing in your presence. They may not understand why, but their spirits respond to your frequency. Jung described this rare glow as invisible to the eyes, yet impossible for the soul to ignore. It is not born of natural charm or surface-level goodness, but of scars turned into strength, wounds polished into wisdom. This glow is a living testament that pain, when transmuted, becomes a source of light for the world. To carry this glow is to carry both responsibility and power. Your aura does not just reflect who you are. It actively shapes the energy of those around you. This is why some are drawn to you as if to warmth, while others are unsettled, even threatened, by the intensity they cannot name. It is the paradox of the empath, magnetic and vulnerable, healer and target, a soul that walks with quiet radiance in a world still learning how to see. And as Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Through each stage, scanning, absorbing, transforming, you are becoming that truth, not merely surviving, but illuminating. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Share your energy with us in the comments by declaring, "My aura radiates healing and light." 4. Attraction of archetypes. The aura of an empath is a powerful magnet that constantly draws in both light and shadow. Carl Jung's insights into archetypes reveal why this happens and why it can be both a blessing and a curse. On the darker side, the empath attracts the wounded child, the shadow projector, and the energy vampire. The wounded child seeks comfort for unresolved pain, pulling at the empath's compassion, but offering little balance in return. The shadow projector unconsciously casts their fears and insecurities onto the empath, mistaking sensitivity for a mirror of their inner chaos. The energy vampire, perhaps the most draining, feeds on the empath's life force, leaving them exhausted and questioning their own worth. These encounters are not just psychological interactions, but energetic exchanges that weigh heavily on the empath's spirit, demanding discernment to avoid being consumed. Yet the same aura that draws the broken also attracts the awakened. Positive archetypes, such as the conscious seeker and the authentic self, are pulled into the empath's orbit. The conscious seeker longs for growth and healing, entering into a relationship of mutual exchange rather than one-sided dependence. The authentic self, rare but invaluable, comes without masks or hidden agendas, resonating with the empath in a deep and honest connection. When empaths meet these archetypes, their energy expands, their presence becomes a beacon of spirituality, and their glow serves as a catalyst for genuine transformation. These encounters remind the empath that their gift is not only about surviving the shadows, but also about amplifying light. The challenge lies in what Jung called archetypal confusion, where the empath struggles to tell who comes to heal and who comes to feed. This confusion breeds cycles of mistrust, blurred boundaries, and unhealthy attachments. Many empaths, mistaking pain for depth, remain entangled with those who drain them, believing their mission is to heal every wounded soul they meet. In truth, not every wound is theirs to carry, and not every presence is meant to be welcomed. Spiritual awakening at its core requires intelligence as much as compassion, the ability to recognize archetypal patterns, to see beyond appearances, and to choose wisely which energies to engage. In modern life, this confusion intensifies. Digital spaces amplify archetypes, allowing energy vampires and shadow projectors to disguise themselves behind curated images and words, while true seekers and authentic souls remain less visible. The empath, scrolling through feeds or opening their heart in relationships, may feel drained without knowing why. This is where discernment must become a daily practice. Jung reminded us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Looking within allows the empath to strengthen their inner clarity, to filter the energies approaching them, and to protect the sacred glow they carry. Grounding practices, whether through meditation, prayer, or time in nature, help release energies that do not belong to them. Boundaries are not walls, but forms of spiritual wisdom, lines that protect the empath's light without dimming it. Choosing carefully who belongs in one's circle ensures that their gift is preserved for those who truly value it. The empath's aura was never meant to be consumed by confusion. It was meant to be a vessel of healing and awakening. By embracing discernment, the empath transforms their rare glow from a fragile flame into an enduring light that guides not only themselves, but also those worthy of walking beside them. 5. The mirror effect. Carl Jung once revealed a powerful truth about empaths that explains why their very presence often provokes such intense and polarized reactions from others. He described what can be called the mirror effect, where empaths unconsciously reflect back the hidden emotions, wounds, and unacknowledged truths of the people they encounter. To conscious, self-aware individuals, this reflection feels like recognition. It brings peace, comfort, and even healing, because the empath mirrors back the beauty of their inner growth. But to those who are disconnected from themselves or trapped in denial, the same reflection feels threatening. It shines light on the shadows they would rather keep buried, and that exposure can trigger discomfort, hostility, or attempts to drain the empath's energy. This is why empaths often find themselves at the center of extremes, either magnetically adored or unfairly rejected, and it has little to do with their own behavior and everything to do with the unconscious material they awaken in others. When you carry this empathic energy, you become like a living mirror, and every interaction becomes a reflection of where someone is in their own journey of spirituality and spiritual development. Those ready for honesty see in you a chance to grow, while those who fear their own truth resist, sometimes fiercely. This creates a paradox for empaths. They may feel both deeply loved and deeply misunderstood at the same time. The gift of this mirror effect is profound because it means your presence alone can catalyze transformation. But the burden is heavy because it also invites conflict and projection from people unwilling to face themselves. This dynamic teaches an important lesson. You cannot take everyone's reaction to you as a judgment of your worth. The hostility or envy you encounter often has nothing to do with you personally, but instead reflects someone else's struggle with their shadow. Understanding this allows you to release the weight of responsibility for others' emotions. Yet, it also means learning to protect yourself. Without boundaries, the constant push and pull of attraction and rejection can drain your strength and leave you questioning your own value. Empaths must develop discernment, knowing when their mirror is helping and when their energy is being misused. The beauty of Jung's insight is that it affirms the empath's role as more than simply a sensitive soul. You are a catalyst for awakening. Your presence can stir unconscious truths to the surface, and while not everyone will thank you for it, those who are ready will be transformed by it. That is why some people open their hearts to you instantly, while others distance themselves. It is the reflection, not the mirror, that determines their reaction. This understanding invites you to honor your gift without resentment and to walk with clarity, knowing that your rare glow is not meant to please everyone, but to illuminate what is hidden. To live as an empath with wisdom is to accept both sides of the mirror effect, the peace you bring to some and the discomfort you stir in others. It is to remember that your role in the larger journey of human growth is not to be universally accepted, but to embody authenticity so powerfully that those who meet you cannot help but see themselves more clearly. Some will cherish that reflection. Some will resist it, but your task is not to change their response. Your task is to remain true, to guard your energy, and to let your spirituality guide you in using this gift with purpose. In doing so, you embody the essence of spiritual development itself, living as a light that awakens, heals, and transforms, even when it unsettles the world around you. Have you ever noticed how others reflect back the very energy you carry? Share your experience in the comments so we can all learn from one another. And if you haven't explored this yet, simply type "I will reflect light" below to begin this powerful journey together. 6. Collective role. Real empaths carry within them a connection to the collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of unhealed trauma, wisdom, and memory that belongs not just to one person, but to humanity as a whole. Carl Jung, with his profound intelligence and spiritual wisdom, described this rare phenomenon as the empath's ability to sense currents that flow beneath the surface of everyday life. They are not limited to feeling the sadness of a friend or the joy of a loved one. Instead, they act as collective antennae, tuned into the invisible frequencies of the world itself. They can walk into a room and sense tension without a word spoken, or feel the heaviness of global grief long before it becomes visible. Jung once said, "The collective unconscious contains the whole spiritual heritage of mankind's evolution, born anew in the brain structure of every individual." And for empaths, this truth is not abstract theory, but an everyday experience. This heightened awareness allows empaths to receive universal wisdom and warning signals that others overlook. They sense the archetypal forces at work, the hidden patterns shaping events, and the silent whispers of humanity's wounds. Yet with this extraordinary perception comes a burden few can imagine. They often carry pain that is not their own, absorbing suffering that flows through the collective field. Jung called this risk psychic inflation, the danger of being overwhelmed by forces too vast for one individual to hold. For empaths, the weight of collective trauma can feel unbearable, leading to exhaustion, confusion, or even the sense of being consumed by energies beyond their control. And still, within this very vulnerability lies their true strength. Empaths embody the archetype of the wounded healer, transforming what they carry into insight, compassion, and healing for others. Their very presence can ease storms in another person's soul, not because they speak the right words, but because they radiate an energy born of deep suffering transmuted into light. Jung reminded us there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and empaths live this path daily. They hold the paradox of carrying both the world's wounds and its hope, sensing darkness yet offering light, feeling chaos yet bringing calm. The rare glow that surrounds an empath is not an illusion. It is the natural aura of one who lives in two realities at once, grounded in personal life, yet deeply attuned to collective existence. This glow is both a gift and a responsibility, demanding that empaths learn to balance their sensitivity with grounding practices, strong boundaries, and wise use of their intelligence. It teaches them to embrace their role not as victims of overwhelming emotions, but as vessels of transformation. Their task is not to drown in the flood of collective energy, but to rise above it, shaping it into wisdom, compassion, and guidance. To be an empath is to stand at the edge of humanity's consciousness, to feel what others cannot, and to carry forward the possibility of healing for the whole. 7. From wounded healer to sovereign healer. An empath who remains unconscious of their inner wounds inevitably becomes an emotional sponge, absorbing the weight of others' grief, anger, and pain until their own identity feels blurred. Carl Jung called this the path of the wounded healer, someone whose sensitivity is shaped by hidden scars that make them both compassionate and fragile. Yet in the realm of spirituality and spiritual awakening, wounds are not meant to be lifelong chains, but stepping stones to higher wholeness. The very suffering that once drained an empath holds the seed of transformation, waiting to be recognized and integrated. Through the process of self-healing, the empath begins to shift into a sovereign healer, sensitive but not shattered, compassionate but no longer without boundaries. This evolution requires the courage to face personal trauma, to acknowledge patterns of overgiving, and to reclaim a sense of sovereignty that allows empathy to flow with strength rather than depletion. Jung's insight aligns with modern spiritual wisdom. Empathy must be conscious, not unconscious. True healing means you can still feel the depths of others, but you no longer lose yourself in their storms. Instead, you become a steady presence, grounded, discerning, and resilient. As this inner work deepens, the empath's aura undergoes a profound transformation. It shifts from carrying a wounded frequency to radiating integrated wholeness. Others sense it immediately. The calmness you bring into a space, the quiet strength that surrounds you, the glow that feels like light forged in shadow. This energy acts as both a magnet and a filter. It attracts healthier relationships, people who honor and uplift your presence, while repelling those who once fed on your openness. Spiritual awakening reveals that this glow is not merely symbolic. It is psychological alchemy made visible, the proof that pain has been transmuted into wisdom. Jung emphasized conscious empathy, the ability to hold another's sorrow without drowning in it. In practical terms, this means listening with compassion while staying rooted in your own truth, offering kindness without sacrificing your stability, and giving without erasing yourself. It is a balance between love and boundaries, openness and self-preservation. In a modern world filled with noise, collective anxiety, and emotional chaos, such conscious empathy becomes an act of survival as well as service. It protects your energy while allowing you to remain a healing presence for others. The empath, who embodies this sovereignty, discovers that their gift is no longer a burden, but a power. By integrating wounds into wisdom, they embody spirituality as transformation rather than escape, strength rather than sacrifice. Their light is not fragile, but enduring, not naive, but deeply aware. This rare glow that Carl Jung described is the signature of a soul that has moved beyond unconscious absorption into conscious radiance, a presence that uplifts without losing itself, reminding us all that true healing lies not in denying pain, but in transmuting it into a wholeness that cannot be shaken. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on transforming your wounds into strength and stepping fully into your role as a sovereign healer. 8. Evolutionary and collective purpose. Carl Jung believed that real empaths hold a rare evolutionary role in guiding humanity toward higher consciousness, for they embody authentic feeling and conscious boundaries in a world that often rewards suppression and disguise. Their ability to express emotions with honesty while maintaining inner strength shows that vulnerability is not weakness, but a profound model of integrity, inspiring others to live with truth. In a society built on appearances, empaths quietly remind us that authenticity is the true foundation of spiritual development and meaningful connection. Every act of empathy creates what Jung described as consciousness ripples, waves of healing that extend far beyond the individual. These ripples transform families, friendships, and entire communities, not through forceful effort, but through the silent power of presence. You have likely felt this before, when the calm energy of someone softened your anxiety, or when their compassionate attention gave you strength. Empaths do not need to convince or demand. They embody spirituality in motion, living proof that spiritual development is not confined to private meditation, but revealed in the way they uplift and heal the people around them. Jung also saw empaths as forerunners of humanity's collective evolution, carrying within them a glimpse of what higher awareness looks like in practice. While many pursue possessions or status, empaths reveal that true progress lies in connection, understanding, and the raising of collective consciousness. Their sensitivity, often seen as a flaw, becomes a prophetic gift pointing toward the future of human growth. They show us that spirituality is not about escaping the world, but about transforming it through presence, compassion, and wisdom born of experience. The greatest transformation comes when empaths stop viewing their sensitivity as a curse and begin to embrace it as a superpower. Instead of being overwhelmed by emotions, they learn to recognize this gift as a deeper way of perceiving reality. They can sense the truths hidden behind words, feel the unspoken pain in others, and intuitively understand the forces shaping human behavior. When supported by strong boundaries and self-awareness, this sensitivity no longer drains them, but empowers them, allowing them to live with clarity and purpose. What once felt like an unbearable weight becomes a source of vision, guidance, and strength. To be an empath, then, is to carry both responsibility and grace. You are called not only to heal yourself, but to stand as an example for others, showing that pain can be alchemized into wisdom, and that sensitivity can be the key to higher purpose. Your presence becomes a light in dark places, a mirror that reflects both truth and hope. Through your authenticity, your boundaries, and your compassion, you help shape the spiritual awakening of humanity itself. This is the rare glow Jung spoke of, the invisible energy that makes you magnetic, the sign that your spirituality is not merely personal, but part of humanity's collective journey into higher consciousness. And so, the mystery of this rare glow reminds us that true empathy is not a weakness, but a profound strength, one that Carl Jung himself recognized as both a blessing and a burden. If today's message touched you, I invite you to carry it into your own journey of growth and self-discovery. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need this wisdom, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos filled with insights to guide your path